where we're really moving towards is a much more intuitive experience of creating and consuming knowledge, not only for ourselves, but for the agents that support us and whatever it is that we're doing. With a lot more trust in the security and the results that we get and the outcomes that we're driving.
Our hopes and dreams for AI, among many other things, I hope it doubles, triples, 10x's the amount of makers and builders that we have with our product. That is how we keep a community vibrant. That's how the product grows.
It was really a matter of just continuing to do what I do and really just love SharePoint, because I would figure things out and I just really wanted to share it with everyone and wanted to show people hacks I had figured out, little weird things in SharePoint Designer.
There's going to be new interactions with customers, new insights, new product ideas, new creative storytelling, and AI is going to be part of that.
Happy 25th birthday, SharePoint. Happy 25th birthday to SharePoint to all of you. Hello, everybody. How we doing? Almost the end of the first day. Woo-woo! Community. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. All right. So there's some cupcakes, I think, as you know, over there, and a big old cake you take a picture of. But my name is Heather Cook. I'm a principal PM on our customer advocacy team, your producer, DJ, and all those fun things. So yay, I'm so happy to be here with you and your host for this panel. Hi, everybody. How we doing? Woo, woo, woo. Okay, cool. Right on. So as you all probably have heard and know, SharePoint turned 25. My goodness, right? Yeah. Who's been around since that 2001 date, right?
Woo!
Oh my goodness, so
Look
many
at all
of
these
you.
people.
That's
Awesome.
so cool. Absolutely. So lots of SharePoint going around for sure, because it's the underpinning for everything we do, right? Copilot as well. So our panelists here, I'm going to let you introduce yourselves, please. And Adam, will you please start?
Sure, my name is Adam Harmetz. I joined Microsoft in 2005, so I wasn't there at the beginning of SharePoint, but it involved pretty much in or around SharePoint ever since I started. Today, I'm the VP of Product for SharePoint, working for Jeff. I also have the honor of being the exec sponsor of this conference and our community efforts with Heather and Karuana and many others. So,
Woo! Give him a round of applause, please, because that is awesome. Thank you.
So, and I love that dual part of the role, both product as well as community and the ecosystem.
Hi, I'm Laura Rogers, and I've been working in SharePoint for about 20 years. I've been an MVP for 15 years, and I actually had my own SharePoint and Power Apps training company called IW Mentor, and I love teaching SharePoint and speaking at conferences.
I'm Jeff. Thank you so much. At the end of a... Thank you so much for coming to the event, and long day. Thank you all for being here. Very curious what you're going to ask.
I'm Sue Hanley. I can't talk. I did a workshop all day yesterday. You probably don't want to hear me talk. I have been working with SharePoint since before it had a name. And I build intranets based on SharePoint. All SharePoint all the time.
I love that. Thank you, everyone. Hi, everyone. I'm Karuana. I've been in SharePoint, joined the SharePoint family in around 2007 before I came to Microsoft. I want to know who here is new to SharePoint? Who's got less than 2 years in the SharePoint bubble? We got some new people? Yeah. Okay, you're all lying. I see one person. Maybe that's true. Excellent. Welcome to anybody who's new to this, as well as those who've been here a long time. So happy to be here.
Absolutely. So we're going to go through the panel here. What is one moment, just one, I know there's many, in your SharePoint journey that really stands out? Like which moment for you is like that real nugget of like, wow? Who wants to go first? Adam, go ahead.
Sure. I had graduated from college in 2005, and I guess it was a couple years in, because we worked on records management in Office SharePoint 2007, and we showed up to a records management convention in San Antonio, and at the time we were just getting into blogging about our stuff, and we were doing a weekly blog on records management in the product, and it was the first time someone come up to me and basically said, "Oh my God, you're Adam, I read your blog." And it was, we actually had, that Halloween, people had T-shirts made, and it said, "Oh my God, you're Adam, I read your blog." And it was, coming out of college for me, it was just this, I'd worked on a lot of solitary things. That's what you do when you're in school. And then to come to an environment where you're working in this entire ecosystem, working with a bunch of other people, it was eye-opening for me, and just that power of community, the power of creating something that other people are going to need to learn about and see. And so that was like really an unlock moment for me of something special here on what a tech ecosystem was and what it could be.
All right, I think that my big aha moment was back at SharePoint Conference 2009, because that was the first SharePoint conference I went to, and that was really getting to know the community, getting immersed in getting to know all these people in person who I'd seen on social media, and having people come up to me and ask me, say they read my blog, just like that, and just a lot of that, and just a lot of just so many people who love SharePoint as much as I did. So it was just that kind of really feeling connected to all these humans.
Gosh, so many. I'll pick one that I haven't used in a while, which is June 28th, 2011, when we launched Office 365, and we had no idea whether we had too much or too little capacity, and we held our breath for the first 24, 48 hours to see if anybody would sign up, and a lot of people did. And boy, we had a lot to learn about building a large-scale cloud service after that. But that was a moment where I saw we were going to make it from chapter 1 of SharePoint to chapter 2.
I'll go back further than that, because I got a chance to work on a project that was still really fun for me back in the day. I worked with the School of Nursing at Johns Hopkins to build a community for palliative care nurses all over the country. And it was really cool, and Microsoft sponsored the project, which was very cool. And then they asked my client, who is a nurse, to come and speak at an event where Steve Ballmer was the keynote. It was at the Moscone Center in San Francisco, and she wouldn't go unless I came with her. So Microsoft flew us out there. We got picked up at the airport with a sign. It was really cool. And we're sitting in the keynote in the front row, and she takes out her knitting. And I'm like wanting to crawl under a hole because I thought she wasn't paying attention. And every time Steve said something, she would look at me and go, "How come we don't have that? When are we getting that? Why isn't that in our solution?" So I will never forget that moment.
Oh my goodness, these are such good moments. I think a really pivotal moment for me was, SharePoint conference in Irvine. What year was that we were in Irvine? 2012. 2012. Okay, in Irvine in 2012.
2012 was in Vegas as well.
Yeah.
It was
2014 in Anaheim.
2014?
Anaheim. Not Irvine, Anaheim.
We rented out Disneyland, which
Yes.
for an LA kid
Anaheim.
was just the coolest thing.
Yeah.
It was completely cool. So that was awesome. But my actual moment was they built this stage to do interviews on. And I helped them on the technical side, like how to do all of the cameras. And I was working with our studios team. And I was like, oh, this is just so cool. I was kind of enamored with it, because I'm kind of a geek like that. And I asked the woman who had been working on it, I'm like, who are you going to have work on this? She goes, oh, I thought you were doing that. And I was like, what do you mean you thought I was doing that? She didn't have any guest book. She didn't have any interviews booked. There was this absolutely stellar stage with nothing to happen on it. And I actually called on all these community people. Some of whom are here today. So I'm like, they gave us this stage. Will you come and talk about community? Will you come and talk about women in SharePoint at the time and what have you? And I ran that whole stage. That was the first time that I'd ever really done that. And it was so awesome. I know you're saying something I can't hear. Yeah, SPC TV. That is absolutely, that's what it was called. That was phenomenal. But that's when I thought, oh, maybe I can hang out here. They let me do fun stuff.
I will share a quick one as well. A pivotal one for me along the way was Jeff, when you came and did the keynote at SharePoint Saturday Los Angeles. I think it was the first keynote that you had done in the SharePoint series, the SharePoint Saturday series. And to me, I was a community member at that time. I wasn't working at Microsoft. I was an MVP. And you coming back and doing that and keynoting one of those shows and continuing to keynote and speak at those shows, I think I'm right about that. But that was a pivotal moment, I thought.
I brought my daughter
Yes.
so she would see what a tech community was. It was really, really fun.
Yeah, that was a pivotal moment. But to me, that was like, you really came into the community in a way. Do we all agree? Like, that was a pivotal moment, I think, when Jeff really came in that. Thank you for doing that, because that was awesome. So, yeah. Oh, I got to ask more questions. Okay, right. Let's see. How about...
LA was good,
Yeah.
but is Gokun still here?
Gokun? Gokun, are you around?
He was here a little bit.
Yeah.
I will say SharePoint Saturday Paris in 2016,
May we?
where they had the speaker dinner on the boat on the Seine, was probably peak SharePoint Saturday.
Yeah,
I think that sounds pretty peak.
Full on. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so at any given time, most of you know, but for the folks who are new, there was a SharePoint Saturday going on. In any given Saturday, there was probably 3 going on in the world, probably around 2008 to 2018 or so. Yeah, something like that. So, and now we're doing community days and collab days all over the world as well. So, okay, let's talk about what's something that we used to struggle with that's now completely solved in SharePoint.
Patching. Nobody has to patch anymore. We do. We patch millions of servers every day, but you don't have to. You can go focus on real work.
Yeah? Should we just keep it at that? Yeah? Okay, all right, cool. That's good. So let's talk about how did the move to the cloud fundamentally change SharePoint? You know, that move to the cloud obviously changed it. What's the kind of like, what was that? Because that was a big moment as well. That was another pivotal moment that happened. Go ahead.
I was very excited when SharePoint moved to the cloud because I'm not a programmer, I'm not a developer, and I did everything in SharePoint just out of the box, no code, and kind of pushed it to the limits, but it kind of actually made that realm shine more because there was less development you can do, and you couldn't necessarily throw programmers at everything, and so I feel like it was a bigger opportunity, and I got maybe more customers because I've been able to do things out of the box like that.
Let's talk about the SharePoint name a little bit. Will you give us a little history on that?
Yeah, I can do it, and I'm now a little more accurate because we had a founders dinner in Seattle, in Bellevue, on March 2nd, which was the birthday, in Gitas Barstukas, who ran marketing at the time. This was back, it's what every engineering leader wants. Marketing was decentralized in Microsoft at that time, where marketing worked for me, for SharePoint. And of course, that led to complete chaos, where every team in Microsoft had its own marketing team, and was all competing for field attentions and press releases. But anyway, in that glorious moment before they centralized it all, which was the right move, it was, of course, some of you remember, it was called Tahoe. That was the code name of the project. We hired a branding firm, and they threw up a bunch of names on the wall, and in Building 42, and I remember we walked in and we didn't like any of them. And Gitas, I think, said, it was Brian Murphy or somebody else, threw out the name. We'd paid this fancy branding firm to come up with the names. And he said, what about, and it was almost something horrible, like Office Document Server or Office Portal Server. It was like, so, and we're like, no, Knowledge Server, ugh. And, somebody was riffing, PowerPoint, SharePoint. And we said, oh, we like that. And so we went with that. And then, of course, there were 2 things in the company. Office server extensions. And so we use SharePoint on both things, SharePoint Team Services and SharePoint Portal Server. And then we brought them together on .NET in 2003, and away we went. But that was sort of how Tahoe became SharePoint.
So, Laura and Sue, will you talk a little bit about becoming a SharePoint MVP, when that happened, and how long you've been doing that? And just talk about that journey a little bit, would you?
So I think I've been an MVP for 11 years. I mean, I always felt that I didn't quite fit the mold. Do you remember me talking to you about this? I went up to Jeff at a conference and said, you know, I used to work for a large company, Dell, and I represented Dell at Microsoft. And so I learned about what was going on, and I knew what was going on. And then when I left Dell, I had no access to what was coming, and yet I still was doing the same work. And I remember saying, can regular people who are not developers become MVPs? And I don't think there were that many at the time. And so, honestly, for me, it was a great moment. And I think all I did was do the things that I did, which is contribute and share and blog and speak. And it was. I remember that first, day waiting for the email to come to say that it happened. And I remember I was playing cards with my son on New Year's Day, and I kept checking my email. And then I thought it was going to come at 8:30. I forgot it was 8:30 Pacific, and I live on the East Coast. For 3 hours, I was like, oh my God, it's never going to happen.
Yes, that's awesome. Laura, please.
We're all glad it did.
Yeah.
So I've been a SharePoint MVP for about 15 years and a Power Apps MVP for, 5 or 6 years. And with the SharePoint one, I was blogging a lot and started kind of doing videos a little bit back then. And I had started coming to these conferences and made friends with a bunch of people who were MVPs and just asked a lot of questions. And it was really a matter of just continuing to do what I do and really just love SharePoint, because I would figure things out and I just really wanted to share it with everyone and wanted to show people hacks I had figured out, little weird things in SharePoint Designer. But I think it was just kind of what Sue said, like just kept doing what I was doing and just kind of made sure it got into the right hands and made sure everyone was aware of it. So
Your videos saved me. On more than one occasion, I used your videos, and you would answer some bizarre thing that I couldn't figure out. And and then I got to meet you in person. I was like, oh my God, I met Wonder Laura.
thanks.
Yeah, so her handle is Wonder Laura out in the wild, if you know. So Jeff and Adam, so here's the deal. You two have been working together for a really long time, right? Yeah? So will you talk a little bit about that relationship? I mean, you both have been building this product for a little while. Like, what's something that we don't know about each one of you that you could tell us about your, maybe style of work? You know what I mean? Like, you two have been doing this a long time together.
You have permission to be unfiltered, Adam.
I don't know. I think your community reputation matches your internal reputation pretty well, and that is actually one of the things that I think many people in this room would say resonates. You have this level of authenticity. Internally, you are known for being incredibly customer-focused and holding a very high bar. I'm looking at Steve right now. I think he's nodding his head. Steve's our engineering counterpart.
Bailey.
And also having, the art of framing things. We don't do things willy-nilly. We have structure in the way we think about things, whether that's in the keynote or even internally before things are created. And so, those are a couple things. We've been together for a while. Teams have joined your org and left your org, and I always get the question of, so what is it like to work with Jeff? What should I know about Jeff as various teams comes in? So that's basically part of my playbook that I tell people when they come and join the org.
That wasn't too bad. Not much spice there. It's been great to work together. I think many people know we had this inflection point in 2015 where we sort of reconstituted the team a little bit. And Adam at that point really became the heart and soul of the SharePoint product. That Adam and Jason Moore, who's here championing OneDrive, really became the product leaders on how we holistically defined what we were building. And there was a lot of sea changes in the industry, and I think part of my job that I do and abuse is sort of being paranoid about, is Microsoft going to ride the next wave. And so Adam and Steven and Jason and Naresh Khanna, who's not here, put up with a lot of 7 by 24, what if we did this, what if we did that. And certainly a lot of that's going on right now with AI. And oh my God, these agentic models, look at them, what they're doing in coding with GitHub. What if we did this in SharePoint, that, this skills thing. And I think you've been a very principled leader going back to trying to be very clear about what are our priorities, how is this going to land in the market, how does it relate to other things in Microsoft, and coming up with a plan that was neither too conservative but not too crazy. And I think, the one time I talked Adam off the ledge and he was chief demo officer was when we did SharePoint Spaces, a product that only existed because I made the team do it. But because I thought, if this VR thing's going to take off, why not making a VR space as easy as it is making a web page? And the team executed it very well, super well. I remember Adam saying, okay, boss, if that's what you want me to do, I'll do it. But other than that, I think you've kept the team very creative and customer focused. And it's tricky in our industry to be ahead of customers, but not too far ahead of customers. So I think Adam's provided that balance that has let us land always pretty much in the right zone.
Yeah, OneDrive has a great feature where you can do the sort of the face recognition, and it goes back over the years. And so for Jeff, there's basically this period of all these features of Jeff at conferences, 2 years of Jeff wearing a VR headset on his face as we have a bunch of internal reviews on Spaces, and then back to the conference views is basically the OneDrive Jeff face demo. And it's actually pretty impressive. It can still tell it's you, even though you're wearing a giant headset on the face.
Yeah, I wonder. Anyway, I'm glad we did it.
Don't give him any more ideas right now. You're adding to your backlog. You realize this, right?
No, it's better. Sometimes customers get mad at us because we tried things that didn't work and we had to cancel a project. And I know that's disruptive for customers, and so we don't want to be cavalier about it. But at the same time, we took some risks. The cloud was a risk. People told us they would never move to the cloud. We jumped off the cliff, and it worked out. So I celebrate SharePoint Spaces because we tried, we did good work, and when it didn't work in the market from any vendor, we sort of moved on. So anyway.
It is something we talk about when we talk, resource allocation. One of the things we talk about when new people join the team is you should have 10% of your resources on a low percentage shot. Something that may not work, but let's go see. Now, as you said, you have to worry about change management. You look a customer in their eye. Are you going to take a hard dependency on this, or is this part of our high-risk bets? But I think that's one of the things that I think has kept SharePoint relevant over the years. Not all of them pan out. Certainly kept people interested in the team, is that ability to have a portfolio of investments, some that are very sure things, and some that you're riding waves in the industry.
So I've got a couple more questions. Karuana, so as many of you know, and if you were there today, who was at the premiere of More Than Code, the movie? Yeah? Right on. So super cool. That was all put together, and there's lots more to come. The online presentation of that will be next week. We're going to launch it. And then there's all kinds of videos that happen with so many wonderful people that'll be on that site as well. So lots of, from all over the last 25 years. It's going to be great. So what was it like to produce that and pull all that together? And maybe what did you learn that you didn't know?
Oh, my goodness. I learned lots of things I didn't know. But I have to say, it was a tremendous honor to be like that creative director for the birthday event. I never thought I would get to do something like that for such an important product. And I didn't know at the beginning when I came into this community that, number one, I would still be here, and that people would put up with all my crazy ideas, but also that it would just have such a lasting impact on my life. That was fantastic. Tremendously fun. What did I learn that I didn't know? That's a really good question. There's a lot of pieces of the history, of the early history, the naming story. There was just a lot of stories and engineering stories that came out about the way certain features were built or deployed or things that were solved that I didn't know about from those early days. So I learned a lot about the product, but I learned even more about the people and the style of leadership that Jeff and Adam and everyone has always seemed to bring to the table, like creative people, willing to take some risks, willing to take hard feedback, really inviting that feedback. I think that's a culture. People think that inside Microsoft, every team is the same, or we all have the same culture, but that's not actually true. And I happen to just really love the one that we have, and I think that comes from all these years of really being truly customer obsessed and willing to listen to people, tell us what is and isn't working. Of course, our MVPs, there's no shortage of feedback, and we appreciate that. But I just learned a lot about graciousness and gratitude, if I had to sum that up. Yeah.
I know we talked a bit about this in the movie and a little bit, but will you talk about like specific, if you can be, any like feedback that directly came from MVPs that like changed the product? Either Laura and Sue, if you recall something that you were like, yeah, or anything that you want to like that you can remember, or Jeff.
Our skills announcement today. I specifically remember a conversation in January with the MVPs. We showed them our AI in SharePoint. And the number one piece of feedback, I see some people in the room that were on the call, was like, hey, this AI desperately needs to understand the context of the site you're in. It's just going to be dumb if it doesn't have that sort of context. And so that was one of the features that we sort of speed run through development. We had a couple other signals that sort of validated it, of course, but and that is pretty common, right? MVPs are among many other things, constantly push for sort of like, hey, how is this thing going to be contextualized to the environments that the customers have to operate in. The biggest announcement of the day was really directly as a result of that connection with MVPs.
Any others?
I was going to tell a silly story because you brought up a name that will live in my head forever, Gytis Barzdukas. So Gytis was the first Redmond person I met, and I was the director of knowledge management at a global consultancy, and Gytis came with our Microsoft rep to show us this thing called Tahoe. And back in 1999, the name of the game in our space was Lotus Notes. And we took a look at it, we gave them feedback, and when Gytis said to me, we're going to charge $72 per user per month, I looked at him and said, under no circumstances, you have to build that into the EA. And it just has to come with, because you cannot take on Lotus Notes with this V1 product. And so I always say to people, the fact that it's built into the EA and now part of the licensing, I want to say, you're welcome.
There you go. You're welcome, everybody.
Good. Very good.
That is awesome.
Of course, that's list, and nobody ever paid that. But the business plan was on my whiteboard, which was there was 250 million Office users. If we got the 50 million whose organizations most cared about content management to pay us $20 a year, not $72 a month, that would be $1 billion, and so that would be pretty good. The best Lotus Notes story, though, is how many people have even heard of Lotus Notes? Okay. You should, because it was one of the pioneering products in the industry. Ozzie built it. Ray eventually came to Microsoft, championed the cloud and so forth. The best congratulations I got on March 2nd was Ozzie messaged me on LinkedIn congratulating me on 25 years as SharePoint. And I will tell you, I'm so grateful for all the MVPs and all the customers and all my colleagues. But the guy that invented this category and built a brilliant product without any blueprint to copy from, to have won versus what he built, and for him to be gracious enough to congratulate things meant the world to me. And we'll try to keep this party going for another 25 years. But we should also look back in the history of computing and recognize and celebrate the pioneers. So thank you for the Lotus Notes reference.
Yeah.
We worked very hard to beat that product. It was a tough product to compete against.
Awesome. Anyone else? I got one more question, I think. Let's talk a bit about the future, right? So what do we think 25 years from now? Oh my goodness, that's a long time. Let's try 5. How about that? We're going to try 5 years
Yeah,
from
don't
now.
stress us out, Heather.
I know. I'm like, I don't know. Anyway, 5 years from now, where do you think we're going to be?
SharePoint will read your mind.
Anyone? They're like,
I don't know. I think SharePoint Spaces is coming back at him.
Oh, no, product announce.
absolutely.
It's gonna.
We all watched Star Trek Next Generation, and we said, where's our damn holodeck?
Yeah, I was like, Earl Grey, hot, please, right? Adam?
I mean, I do think, obviously, have we said AI during this panel yet? Or like people, now everybody has to drink. It's a happy hour.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
But if the
AI.
question really is sort of our hopes and dreams for AI, among many other things, I hope it doubles, triples, 10x's the amount of makers and builders that we have with our product. That is how we keep a community vibrant. That is how we, that's how the product grows. We think about how we're a little bit of a two-sided marketplace of knowledge makers and the knowledge consumers. And if we could even just double the number of knowledge makers in the system, how transformative that is for the whole ecosystem, both within an organization and then everything around here. And so, I mentioned that mainly because, I think what you see today and what we're seeing is AI has a real shot at doing that. We're all trying to figure out hype versus reality, but, I think AI is going to automate a bunch of things for time. And so I think we, at the end of the day, that is what, I hope it doesn't obviously put people out of jobs, but rather expand the number of people that can do these content management scenarios. And so I hope that's quicker than 5 years away, but, I think that's one of the things that we think a lot about in terms of the potential opportunity for an ecosystem like SharePoint.
Yeah, a really good point. I'll build on it. It was something I tried to do at the end of the keynote. I don't know if I did it successfully or not, but AI is not going to be in this loop recycling what has already been trained in the model. That's only, it's like, give me a training plan for running, or what's the guitar chords for something like this or something like that. The AI will do that, but there's going to be new interactions with customers, new insights, new product ideas, new creative storytelling, and AI is going to be part of that, but there will need to be some content management system that captures new feedback from the world and new insights, and human beings generate more things with it. So I think it's crazy, this view of the world that all the people go home and the model has just got all it needs to know and we stop creating information. So I think we're going to find that hopefully AI automates some of the drudgery, but we get to do the things we like to do, which is talk to customers, brainstorm with other people, and build things.
Yeah, I just want to stop answering what tool when. That's my only goal. I feel like where we're really moving towards is a much more intuitive experience of creating and consuming knowledge, not only for ourselves, but for the agents that support us and whatever it is that we're doing. With a lot more trust in the security and the results that we get and the outcomes that we're driving. I feel like there's still a barrier a bit between the people who would build a SharePoint site and the people who consume from it. And I'd love to see that just disappear. And I think with our new AI capabilities, that is so very close. When people have the confidence to just go in and tell it what it is that you need. I need a portal for all my training videos. Go build me one, right? And I feel like that's going to unleash a lot of creativity. So I'm really looking at the creativity that's going to be unleashed in the next few years and excited about where that's going to take us, both as technology professionals here, but out in the world with all the other folks who may or may not even know what SharePoint is called, right? There's a lot of people who use this product that don't actually think of it this way. The way that we do, and what they're really looking at is the experience that they're having with it. And I just want that experience to be better and fluid and unblock them from coming up with new and creative solutions to all the challenges that the world really has. So I really believe we're going to get there, and I'm excited about that.
That's awesome. So I just am going to say this because it hasn't been said, I don't think. Copilot.
Drink. Everyone drinks
Everybody,
now.
yeah. Nobody
Everybody
said
drink.
it. Nobody said it. Really.
Yeah.
That's me. All right. Lightning round. Last thing, and I'm going to take us back. Favorite piece of SharePoint swag or something that you've got. Lightning round. Go.
The monkey.
Monkey. What else?
The SharePoint shirts that
Oh, the-
Christian made.
The sharing the point.
Share, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
SharePoint. Anybody?
I have a jacket from some event I went to that says SharePoint on it that I still wear all the time. I don't like it, but it's got the best pockets and zippers of any jacket I own.
That's awesome. Oh, look, you have a visual.
Yeah, absolutely. The SharePoint. Most of the new hires have no idea who this is.
Yeah, share. You know, do you believe in life after love? Share. That's sharing the
We
point.
have stickers for
Christian
you.
Buckley.
Christian Buckley, the
Yes.
originator of SharePoint.
Christian right there.
Oh,
yes.
he's got 'em.
I,
He's
bu-
got
I
'em.
bought it off of his online website.
He's got a few. He's got a few. Okay. All right.
I got to go with our good friend Mark Cashman in the SharePoint socks.
Yes.
All right, Mark was
Where's
right over
Mark?
there, yeah,
Mark
okay.
has
Mark
got the
was
socks
here a
on
minute
right now.
ago,
Oh,
yeah.
superstar.
Mark Cashman.
Okay,
There he
Mark
is
Cashman
with the socks on. Love that.
Absolutely. I think Matchbox cars and the Ferrari shrink-wrapped T-shirts were my favorite because I helped do those. But I loved those. Those were super fun. So perfect. Did you?
Wait,
everybody
are
see
you
one?
giving away the stickers for free? I paid for those off of your website.
That's awesome. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up. And panelists, thank you so much. Happy 25th birthday, SharePoint. Happy 25th birthday to SharePoint to all of you. So many
Thank
of you
you.
raised those hands. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a great conference. I hope you got a cupcake. And that's it. Yay!
Thank you, everyone.